So thank you everyone for joining us here for our webinar regarding improving site search relevancy for 2023. Together with me, I have Michael, who is from ABPI and who will be presenting his part on essentially how relevancy has impacted ABPI, of course, via Cludo, and explaining a little bit more about getting his point of view on these things, because since, of course, I'm a little bit biased here in terms of how things work. But Michael will actually be able to give you a kind of your point of view on these things. And then I also have Benjamin here next to me, which we might not be able to see, but you might hear him at some point. He'll be like my moderator in case I don't see any questions or chat messages along the way. So please do use the Q&A functionality we have in Zoom, as well as the chat functionality. I might be asking you questions along the way, so please do feel free and join us in that way. Great, and I guess we'll actually just get started. So let me tell you a little bit about first regarding who we are at Cludo. So Cludo started in 2015. We have offices in Copenhagen initially, and then expanded to Minneapolis. And we have also developers in Portugal and Bulgaria as well. We have customers in over 20 countries, and across these different countries, we have around 700 customers, or more than 700 customers actually. And to this date, we have performed over 1 trillion search queries, which can sound like a lot, and it doesn't really. It's a big number, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I've calculated that being around like 5,000 searches per second, essentially, since we started. And then we have, we are essentially a search built for websites and apps and intranets, and that is primarily what we do here at Cludo. Just to give you a quick idea of like what we're going to be talking about here today. First of all, we're going to be talking about what search relevance actually is. Like, what is it? How does it work? How does it manifest? And then we're going to get into how we at Cludo affect relevance. What tools do we have to affect it? And then we're going to hand it over to Michael, who's going to be talking about their point of view in terms of like how relevance has impacted them. And then at the end, we're going to take any summary, or we're going to take a quick some takeaways, as well as some questions at the end. But please do write questions along the way, and then we can maybe, if there's something we should address along the way, we'll do that as well. Great. So let's talk about why you should even care about search relevance in the first place. So first of all, it's about brand strength. If your search is poorly optimized, then that will reflect in your brand. First of all, you might not, be able to perform the best search, give the best search experience, give the best search results, and therefore that will also reflect in your brand and how you are being perceived in the end. So that's the first thing to consider. The next thing is the bad user experience, considering the fact that well, if you have a bad user experience, then most likely you're gonna leave the site in the end, and that is the same with search. If you have a bad search experience, then most likely they're gonna leave your site, which of course in the end leads to missed revenue in terms of like people not being able to find what they're looking for, and they might go elsewhere to actually find that instead. And even if you're not revenue driven per se, then you might be cost driven, right? And there is also a cost factor in this in terms of people, if they can't find what they're looking for, then they're going to start calling you, or they're going to submit a ticket or email you, or in other ways try to contact you and spend resources that you have internally as well. So that's another important consideration in terms of why you should care about relevance. But what are the signs of poor relevance in the first place? Well, one of these things is something like searches without results. So if people do search for something, but they get 0 results, that could be because of misspellings, it could be because of synonyms, and your search is not optimized to handle and support misspellings or synonyms. Or it might even be something like content gaps. So it's people searching for something that is currently not on your site, but you're just not aware of it because you don't have a search where you can go in and see what people actually are searching for. So that's another point here as well. And then we have the high number of ineffective searches. Ineffective searches in our mind are essentially searches where people are searching for something, but they're not clicking on any of the results, right? So that's an indicator of low relevancy in the end, which we'll get into how we can actually measure at some point, but it's just to give you an idea that essentially people are searching for something, not clicking on it, low CTR essentially. And then we have low search activity, which is something that a lot of you possibly should be able to already now determine and see how many people of the traffic that you're getting, how many are actually searching, performing a search. And if if there's a low search activity, that could reflect and be an indicator of poor search experience. So, but let's talk about what relevance actually is in the first place. So first of all, relevance is about finding items that match a search query. Should be pretty basic. We'll talk about how that happens and how, all these things we talked about before regarding poor search, how that can manifest in the first place of finding even the right items when performing a search. And then there's the second aspect of ranking the results and listing them by the most accurate results at the top. And this is mostly based on text, just purely looking at text and then finding essentially the items where the text occurs the most. We're going to get a little bit more into that later, but it's just to give you an idea about that. And then we have also something based on business logic, which in most cases is actually not something that search is able to address or support in any way, but we are, and we can tell you how that is possible to do with Cludo. So we're gonna touch base on these throughout the webinar, but let's talk about how search actually works in the first place, right? The finding aspect of relevance. Well, how it actually works in the beginning is that we create an index, whether that's already something that is in there, or it's something, in this case, we maybe crawl, or in other ways, we get essentially a library essentially of items in our index. And in this case, we're looking for this sentence in this index. There's an item in there where this sentence appears, and as a searcher, as a visitor of your site, I'm maybe looking for this sentence somewhere in that, for this item with this sentence. And this is just an example, and don't think about the grammar, which I'm going to show here because it doesn't necessarily make sense, but it's just to give you an idea of like how search works. So in this example, we're looking for the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. And the search I perform here is foxes jumps. Well, first of all, it's actually not able to find this because there's a comma in here. It's searching for foxes, even though there's only one fox, and so forth, right? So this won't actually find what I'm actually looking for, at least with how it is being pre-processed, at least. Then we're doing some processing, which I don't want to get into about what we're actually doing, but we're doing a bunch of stuff. I'm going to explain some of them here. So what we're actually trying to do here is first of all, we remove all the stop words, all the over or something else, something that doesn't necessarily give a lot of context meaning to the search. And then we also remove the dots and the commas and so forth. And now we're starting to find something that is more and more alike. But before we can actually perform a good search on this, we're gonna do what is called tokenization, which is essentially splitting up the words so that we can actually directly find what we're actually looking for, in this case, fox and jump, and now we can actually find them individually in terms of like the item that we were looking for. So this is very simplified how a search works and why it's able to find search results in the end. So yeah, and there's of course the processing part. That's where some do it a lot of processing and some don't do a lot, and so forth. Good. So I think that should give you a good idea about that. And then how is relevance determined, or how is it being measured? So regarding the poor signs of relevancy, that was one way of essentially measuring it. But the correct way essentially of measuring it is something called MRR, or mean reciprocal rank, which I'm going to explain to you now. You don't have to remember it because it's not necessarily relevant to remember, but it's good to kind of know how relevance is determined in the end. So an MRR is essentially a way for us to find the average, or the mean, as it says here, rank of the search terms being performed and what people are clicking on. So as an example here, you can see we have these three search terms and people clicking on different results accordingly. So if we look at the second search term, actually, you can see that they're clicking on the first result. And with this beautiful math in here, you can see that it's essentially saying, well, it's looking at, well, 1 over something. And that something is which result has been clicked on. So in the second search term, somebody clicks on the first one, that's 1 over 1, or 1 divided by 1, which is 1. And in the first search term, it's 1 divided by 2, because somebody clicked on the second result. So it's 0.5. And then it's in the last search term, somebody clicked on the fifth result, and therefore it's 1 divided by 5, which in the end is 0.2. And then collectively, that's a score of 1.7. That's not the mean reciprocal rank. That's just, I guess, the reciprocal rank. But the point being that I am now dividing that with the number of search terms that have been performed, which is 3. And that results in a score of 0.57 in this specific case. So that is how it is being measured. Now you know. Now let's kind of move on. It's just to give you an idea of like how it's actually being measured in the end. Now, what is the relevance in terms of like we've talked about so far is the relevance, how relevance is being, what would you say, determined on a technical level, you can kind of say. But there's also the relevance from a user experience level, which also Michael will be explaining a little bit further. But the point being here is that relevance is much more than just the ranking of the results. It's also about how these results are being displayed and presented to the user in the end. So let's dive into that. Here we have an example of what is it called now, Booking.com, and I want you guys to actually maybe mention a few things here of like what you think is missing from this Booking.com search, where I'm looking for places in Minneapolis. I'm looking at hotels. What is actually missing here, right? Like, what other type of information could I use to essentially determine whether the first or the second result is the best one for me now that I'm performing a search? Please do type it in the chat if you have any ideas while I'm taking a sip of water. But yeah, anything you can think of that could be relevant here to display together with the search results. Don't be shy. If you can't think of anything, I also understand that. So I'm going to explain maybe a little bit about what I'm looking for here. But essentially, we are looking into something like display fields. So display fields could be something regarding like what could be good to show together with the search results, right? In the case of the Booking.com example I was showing before, it could be maybe showing the price of the hotels. Like I can't really determine which one I want to click on if I can't see the price. Maybe it could be something regarding reviews or something else. In this case, you can think of like something similar in that effect, but on your own site, which could be something like maybe a publication date. Maybe if you have blogs or news, it would be relevant to show a date together with them. Maybe it could be the source. Maybe like you have different type of searches from different websites. Maybe it could be relevant to show that as part of it. Maybe an image, you can even see that kind of in the screenshot here, that, you know, maybe an image can give some context of what am I about to click on and so forth, right? Another thing that could help the search experience is something like filters. So being able to filter based on specific type of information, that is also something that could be useful. And in this case, for Booking.com, it could be maybe filtering for hotels with Wi-Fi, or some, hopefully most of them have that by now, but maybe something with a pool, and so forth, right? That's another example of that. And then we have sorting. So you can sort by different things in terms of, like, instead of just relevancy, it could be that, you know, when I've already narrowed down what I'm looking for, that's what filters do, right? And the sorting, I know now I'm looking for the cheapest version of those things that I have filtered down for, right? So I'm gonna sort by price, or sort by rating, or something else that is important for me. So really what is important here to keep in mind is that display fields give context of what is it that I'm about to click on, and look further into, and help me determine if what I'm looking at is actually relevant for me or not. And then the filters help you narrow down the number of results. So maybe we was 10,000 results, and now it's 1,000 because you clicked in some of the filters. And then we have the sort by, which doesn't change the number of search results, but it does change the ranking of them, right? Or the sorting. Cool. And then we have a bunch of other stuff we can do together with all of these different other sorting and filters and display fields, which can help the visitor get a better experience and find maybe results quicker. So for example, with search as you type, which is one of our functionalities, which is the ability to, like, as you start typing, you start getting search results even before you've performed the search. Another one could be something like categorized search. So if you have a number of different type of what do you call them now? A number of different type of search results, then you are able to actually show them in different ways depending on which type of search result we're looking at. There's something like popular or suggested searches, which gives you the ability to nudge people in a certain direction if you really want them to search for something or something else as well, and so forth. So this is just to give you some ideas, like, of other ways you can affect the search experience. So this is why booking.com looks like this, and might be looking overwhelming right now, but trust me, when you're actually performing a search on their website, this is useful information for you to, like, determine which result is actually relevant for you. And there are a bunch of other filters which you can't see here in the screenshot, but yeah, a lot of more functionality that they actually have added and made it in the end a good, relevant search experience. So that was something about, like, what search relevance is, how it can manifest, and so forth, and how does actually Cludo affect search relevance. That's the next step here. So with Cludo, we have, like, this pyramid, essentially. It's different layers, essentially, of ways to affect the relevance. So the bottom layer is the most fundamental one, which I'm going to explain here in a minute, and then we can build on top of that and essentially manipulate the layers below it, and so forth. So the first step, or the first bottom layer, essentially, is what we call Okapi BN25. Beautiful name. It's essentially an algorithm, and it's the algorithm that most search engines out there use to rank the results ranking the results in a certain way. And essentially, again, simplified, what it actually does is that it looks for documents or pages with the most occurrences of a search term that we're looking for. And so that in the end results in a score, which is what you can see here at the like under this specific example here. So it results in a score from 0 to 100, and essentially that is the thing that actually results in the ranking in the end. Like in this case, because it's a 9.4, then that's the top result. This one is only has a score of 6 point something, therefore it's the second result, and so forth and so forth. Now, this is essentially the what would you say, the ranking based on text. The next one, this is where you can essentially add some business logic on top of this, right? And manipulate this number, this result that actually appears. And you could define boosting based on a specific category. You can do it based on date, meaning like, you know, how fresh is the information, or maybe it's based on something completely different, and so forth, right? So the point being more that this is where you can actually take some of the business that you have in mind and apply it in form of boosting. Just to give you an example here, we have one of our customers who offers courses, and so there are a number of availability. There's a number of attendees that are available for a specific course, and when it's just just regular availability, it's just 100 in terms of like boosting level. But then when it's starting to get low, they want to sell out that specific course so that it gets kind of filled up, and then they can kind of move on. And so when there's a low availability, when it gets a status of low availability, we actually go in and target that and say, like, when there's low availability, boost that up by a certain amount of percentage points, and then it's going to be boosted up to the top versus something else that is, for example, sold out. If it's sold out, it's not that they want to remove it completely, because they still want to give the visitor the idea of like, this is actually something that you can get, but right now it's sold out. But then it's going to be deboosted by a certain amount, so you can still find it if you're really looking for it, but it's going to be at the bottom somewhere. So this is a way for them to add business logic on top of the search, instead of just the search being based on only text. Then we have what we call dynamic ranking. Dynamic ranking is our way of essentially adding some machine learning on top of the search. So it's our way of adjusting the search results based on user behavior. So the way it actually works is that if a certain number of people, enough people essentially over a certain period of time, click on, in this case, how can search benefit educators, then that result will start to go up to the top. And then the ones that are not being clicked on as much are going to start falling down, essentially. And this is, of course, again, simplified, but it's just to give you an idea that, you know, this is how it works. And this is something that can be easily just enabled, and then you set it and forget it, and you can look at it in terms of like how it's actually performing later. And then we have page rankings. So even though we believe and we do think that, you know, we can do a lot with machine learning and the algorithm can handle a lot, in the end, we do believe that you should be in control of the search. So we are giving you this tool, which is called page rankings, which overrides anything else in this pyramid that I was showing you before. So this one gives you the ability to exactly control what results should be at the top, and then which ones should be the first one, second, third, and fourth one, and so forth, for a specific search term, or specific search terms if there are multiple ones you want to do this for. But this is essentially just a way for you to give you complete and total control over this if there's something you just know that people are looking for. So that's kind of it in terms of like how we can affect it. And I'm going to hand it over to Michael, and Michael just let me know when I should switch to the next slide, essentially.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everybody. It's a hello from me from a very rainy UK. So the ABPI is a trade organization. We don't sell anything. We represent a number of pharmaceutical companies as they make new medicines and vaccines. The only customers that we have are the UK government. And so we don't sell directly to them. We are trying to influence them, trying to give them facts, figures. This is for ministers, their researchers, professionals in the NHS, also nurses, teachers, school people, patients, and the public. So a very wide set of audiences. So what we try to do is to make sure that we can make our website the best it is when people search via Google. And the way that we do that is by improving the experience they have on each page. And the way that we improve that is using Cludo. It's a really simple technique, but it's been highly effective. We had a brand new website in 2017 with Umbraco. It comes with its own search feature, which we didn't find provided the best results. So we wanted something much more suitable that we could change and influence, and that's why we came to Cludo. Okay, Daniel, next one. So as I said, we have a number of technical audiences, and what we look at is what they search for, and how we can best help them. So we have a number of engines which are adjusted for that particular audience. And that's really useful for us because we can make that search very relevant to a particular audience with a particular set of language. And as Daniel says, you know, the page ranking works really well for us, so we can really fine tune that experience. So we do have a number of really important groups. One is the professional group. Look at the main corporate site. We have a school site, which is a free resource on science. We have an NHS element to our corporate site, and we have publications, which are really important because they carry our main reports which are carried on the corporate site. And we also have information about roles and activities in the pharma sector. So we are used as a kind of recruiter jump-off point. Okay, thank you, Daniel. So the corporate site, importantly, carries our global search, and that's really powerful for us. When we look at how people are using our site, using analytics, we can see that search is one of the top 10 items. That's not because the website isn't well structured, it's because the search engine tool is very powerful at providing the right results. I have some anecdotal advice where people who are part of our business, they use the search because they find the page they're after really quickly. And it wasn't something I was anticipating, but I realized that that's a clue to its usefulness that was beyond what we'd expected. So we have that element for internal customers, also for patients, students and providers. One of the things which is really important for us is that we're also very patient focused. One thing that Daniel was saying is that sometimes we look at the searches and the search results which don't actually have a search page to produce. So for example, we don't carry information about particular drugs or medication, but we can see there's hundreds of searches being done on those. And so what we decided to do is produce a banner which will then say, if you are looking for this medication, this is the resource you want to use. We don't know if that person using that result is taking a medicine and having a bad experience or wants more information for a friend or family member, but they need to have key information. We don't carry that. We can use the banner, bring them to a page and let them jump off to other really key relevant resources around the internet. Although it doesn't seem very important, if it's a side effect that maybe cause them issues, it could be a life-saving event. So for us, that's about to come in at the end of the year, and then we will kind of see how we've kind of improved our commitment to our patients. Thank you, Daniel. The school site is not the main focus of the ABPI. We are a lobbying organisation, so our corporate site is the main part, but the school site has more traffic than the corporate site. It is written for school children using the UK curricula across the 4 nations. It's really well written. It's got a good language level. And we have found that it's used not just for those 4 nations, but used globally with over 130 countries consistently using it since it's been launched. What we see is the searches they use, the terms they use, because it's a very international audience, we can then take the search results and those key terms and point them to the right page. And that we find is actually helping people to stay on pages, to engage more. With other tools, we can see that they stay with the page and go down to the bottom of the page, full engagement, which has been really useful for us. What we've also done is try to make sure that we've incorporated the theme of our new website, which is a very kind of friendly palette, and Cludo have managed to actually interpret that and replicate it in the search. So it's a fully inclusive experience. You're not out of that experience when they come to the website. So for us, people come to the site, get the information they're after and stay longer. Okay, thank you, Daniel. The NHS, we have a group of people who work with our pharma companies to do certain trials in certain areas or find ways that they can improve the service with support from the pharma industry. We have so many of these case studies, but they're really very specific. They could be in certain geographical areas, certain therapy areas like cancer or blood issues. And so what it allows the searcher, who is an NHS professional, to do is to come in and do a number of filtered searches. So they can say, what company has done work in our area geographically? Who is doing work in this therapy area, and do that search. That helps them understand what's going on, and they can then jump off and contact that team on their site. We've found it to be exceptionally useful. What it does do is it helps the industry connect with the NHS. And if there's another new area that the NHS are looking for that may be of interest to the pharma industry, they can then start to do another collaboration, which again really does help our patients and obviously improves our knowledge of how the products and processes actually benefit patients. Thank you, Daniel. Our publications, we produce a lot of reports. We are addicted to PDFs. We're starting to move away from that a little bit, where we have a web page which has the kind of key call outs for the executive summary and the real conclusions. But people are addicted to PDFs, one, for us to create them, and two, for them to read them. So what we have done is added this feature to the publication section. And what it then does is that we can then fine tune the search so we get the key terms on that key page. And that's been really effective. Again, one of the things that Daniel's talked about is that kind of filtered search. We produce a code of conduct. And what it allows us to do is when that code of conduct becomes out of date, we have a new one, which was 2022. We can then change the boosting and the ranking of that. So the latest one is the one that they see for most searches. And then the other ones which are still relevant are listed below. That again, when we start to do that simple technique, you can see the uptake is improved. People find it faster and download it more. So that's really helped our engagement. Again, that's really important for us because companies need to make sure they adhere to that latest code. So by doing this, we can guarantee that most of the searches that people are after the new one. They find that, and those ones who are after very old kind of code elements can find the old ones. So it's been really useful for us. Again, one of the things which we talk about is that the UK is trying to be a science superpower. What you need as a science superpower is scientists. So we need to get people to think about science at an early age. And the way to do that is to show these are the opportunities that we have. Now, we're not promoting one particular company. We're trying to show the range of roles across the whole sector. So we have a range of case studies and a range of companies that provide those kind of roles. So what we have found is that we can, again, a bit like the NHS search, use a geographical area or a job type role or a level. So is this something you want to do after school or something you want to do after your first degree or your PhD or you're a postdoctoral researcher? We have that kind of content. This section is, again, not our key area, but it ranks in the kind of top 4 and 5 ranking of our content each week. It's really important. How do we get that? It's because the search engine is really finely tuned. We can see people with other tools we have, the searches they do, how they come to the page, how they use the filter, how they jump off to the actual pages and move through it. So they're finding it highly relevant. So they don't stay long, but they move through very quickly. We see people coming back and again to actually do those different searches. So it's really useful for us and very useful for them. What this ends up doing for us is it helps us in Google for these terms. We have so many successful searches that actually it boosts our relevancy in Google. Also the area of trust, that's which is quite important as well. So all these elements are actually quite important. As I said, just to reiterate, how our users use our searches are different in each use case. I mean, Daniel's talked about, the different kind of mathematical models they use. I don't have to worry about that. That's the nice thing about it, is that the interface that we get, it just allows me to say, actually, I want to boost this particular term higher. I want to change some of the rankings, and I can do that really easily. And I can do that. I'm quite a professional user of our system, but I'm not technical in the way that Daniel was explaining. I've now just recently shared that experience with colleagues who are now taking it on, and after the first week, they can now do what I can do. So that's been really useful for us. That's we have empowered us to do more with our search. And I think what's important is that, you know, we talk about relevancy. People come to our site and they stay longer. And that's one of the key measures of our successfulness, which we have put into our internal KPIs. So we rank higher in Google, people find terms, land on pages, stay longer and engage more. For us, that's success. And if that's what you're after, I think it's a pretty powerful tool.
Thank you very much, Michael, for that. We appreciate that. And we appreciate that you're so happy essentially with Cludo that you wanted to stay here with us as well.
Yeah.
And speak about it. So yeah, we're going to end here with a quick summary, which isn't going to be long. It's just one slide. And these are like takeaways that you should kind of think about when leaving this webinar, that you know, this will kind of give you the idea of like whether you should be actually spending some resources into something like the search in the first place. So one of the first things we want you to think about is like, what if your website was down for a day? Or what even if it was down for a month, right? Is that something you can say like brush off and say like, well, okay, it was down for a day, even a month doesn't really matter. Then fair enough. Then maybe search is not something you need to really look at. But if you can say that this would be detrimental for your site, that it would be down for a day and like devastating for a month, then you should probably consider spending some resources on the search. Not because I'm saying that the entire website and the search is exactly the same thing, but consider the fact that the people using the search are essentially being faced with something like this, right? It's so bad that they're essentially not, you know, able to find what they're looking for most of the time. Then maybe it's something you need to spend some more resources on. Another one is like considering the fact of like, what about, you know, what insights do you actually have? What are you able to see how people are actually behaving on the search? Are you able to see the different signs of poor relevance that we were talking about before? Are you able to do something about them? Do you have the control and ability to, for example, set the boosting levels, you know, add some business logic on top of it and so forth, right? Or are you kind of forced to talk to a developer or something else to do that? And then last but not least, rethink what could be relevant for your visitors. Like the experience that the overall experience we were talking about before, the example of booking.com. Are you currently only showing titles and description, or and is that enough, right? Could there be something else that you could be showing together with the search results, as you, for example, could see with Michael and what they were showing together with their search results? There was some more information in there which could help determine which results were actually relevant in the end. So those are the key takeaways that I want you to guys kind of think about now that you're leaving here, and take away from this in the end. And with that, we're just going to open up for questions that you might have. And I'm just going to wait here for a minute, and I guess nothing has come up yet. Nope, good. And if there are no questions, then we can of course move on. But I mean, we're going to stay here until the end. Both me and Michael are here to answer any questions you might have. And we're just going to wait here. And I'm going to, I mean, even though I'm on the question slide and I'm now moving on, it's not that I'm completely, you can't ask any questions, but if you have any more, well, other questions that are more maybe personal for your own specific case, or maybe you just want to hear more about something specific. Michael was talking about banners before. I didn't touch upon banners earlier, just because there are many more things we could touch upon. But for now, these were the tools we were considering and considering relevant. This is the first time. I was so afraid, by the way, that I would use that pun of relevance along the way, but I'm happy I didn't. So in that sense, that's good for me at least. But yeah, we're just gonna stay here until the end and see if there are any questions you might have. It doesn't look like there are many questions, Michael, right now. I think they're maybe a little bit too overwhelmed with what you said. I'm joking. I think we're good to go for now. So if there's nothing else, then I just want to thank everyone, and I want to give another thank you to Michael for being here with us and presenting and telling us a little bit more about how ABPI has been using Cludo and how Relevance has impacted their business.